Hey guys, what is up? It is Flag44 here. Welcome to another Hawk Ramblings episode or a little show sort of deal. This is going to be previewing the Seahawks versus Packers in Week 3 of the 2013 preseason. I'm going to be talking about some things I think we should be looking out for, some things I'm going to be looking out for, and then when I do my recap video after the game is over, then I'll let you guys know what is how those fared and kind of my thoughts on them, that sort of thing. So first thing, the big thing is, of course, last year there was the whole touchception deal and the Fail Mary, where Russell Wilson scrambled, lobbed the ball up, Golden Tate caught it at the same time that I think it was MD Jennings did, and it was ruled a touchdown, which I still think is, I don't know if it was I'm not really, it's hard to really say that they made the wrong call, I think, because it was so close, and crazy things happened, essentially. Like, I think if it was in Green Bay, it wouldn't have been called a touchdown. But once kind of the fans kind of got sight of it and there was a possibility, I think it kind of spiraled out of their control. But that's, the past. But obviously Green Bay fans and the Packers were super mad. They were so frustrated, even though there was bad calls all around. And it's not like the Packers were the, obviously better team that, somehow the Seahawks had a ridiculous play at the end that, was the only thing. It's not like the Seahawks were awful the whole game and then all of a sudden they, had a crazy play for them to win it. It's like both teams were pretty evenly matched. The Seahawks were much better in the first half, Packers better in the second half, and it was just kind of a crazy play that won it. But, Golden Tate still gets a lot of flack for that, and he's, I think, still trying to get out of the shell of, that, where that's the biggest thing he's known for. And I think he's excited to go to Green Bay and really kind of stick it to the Packer fans, show that he's more than just a guy that had a questionable play. But I think that's definitely something to look out for. He's talked on Twitter about how he's, excited to go back, kind of talking to some Packer fans, and all that sort of stuff. And I think that'll be pretty interesting because he's going to get booed like crazy, I would assume, and the whole Seahawks team, I would imagine. But for some reason, he takes the brunt of it, even though, it's one of those things, like, I guess you can be mad at him, but you can't blame him for anything because, it's not like he was the one that made the call. He did what he, like, they would have done the same thing in a situation. But you can definitely still be angry at him, even though, I don't know. It's kind of just a whole weird situation. But if he, scores a touchdown, what is he going to do for a touchdown celebration? That's something to look out for. Moving off from that, as from the national stage, it'll be interesting to see how this game is looked at. Even though it's just a preseason game, it is get on national television, and it is like, I don't know. It's like there's some talk of it, but there's not a whole lot of talk. And the touchception Fail Mary thing, that was probably the biggest moment of the NFL year last year. So there should be some pretty good interest. I think that might ramp up as we get closer to the game or once the game's on. Should be interesting. So that should be a good position for the Seahawks being in, where they have a good amount of people looking at them from the national perspective, and they're on the road, because how they fare on the road is, I think, the big question mark, as I said before. And then Aaron Rodgers, he was really mad after losing last year. Even though it was one of those things, like, there was things he could have done. Like, I understand being mad, but it's like, don't act like, that was the total game changer and there's no way the Seahawks shouldn't have won that one. Like, will he go all out and try to just really stick to the Seahawks? I don't know. I think it should be a pretty cool test and something pretty exciting. And then, maybe we'll see these teams down the road in the season, in the postseason. Like, we might see the Seahawks Broncos has been a Super Bowl matchup, people have talked about, even though the Seahawks, just dismantled the Broncos. It still could be a Super Bowl matchup. And then the Seahawks got this new guy from the Broncos when they traded John Moffit away. It's like Silega or something like that. He's a defensive tackle, big guy, and doesn't move much, but big, strong run blocker guy, I guess. And he played in some games last year for the Broncos, or I think he just kind of stayed on the edge of the roster, like, as a inactive guy if they needed him for, I don't know, if one of the guys got hurt or something like that. So he's a guy that I'm gonna be looking out for because when they traded John Moffit away, they tried to trade him to the Browns, got this guy Brian Sanford, who's like I don't really know what he was supposed to be, like another defensive lineman, and then that trade got voided after John Moffit would like suited up for the Browns, and then he got sent back to Seattle, and then he just straight shipped to Denver where they got another defensive line guy. So it seems like they really think they need more depth on the defensive line, which is interesting because the Seahawks have so much depth everywhere, and they seem to have some solid players in the defensive line if they need them. I don't really know how much better these players are going to be. Where they might if they really wanted some improvement, maybe they could package some other players together, or just trade Moffat away for a pick if they really want to get rid of him. So that was, I don't know, kind of telling how they tried to trade. They traded him away twice, both for defensive linemen. So that's something to look out for, because I guess if they think if they're trading for a specific player, they think he can make the team, and that's going to be, it's going to be tough because it's tough to make any NFL roster and really tough to make the Seahawks roster. So then let's see, and then how much did they really just want to get rid of Moffit? We'll see. Is this guy an actual player that can contribute, or is just Moffit they just wanted him gone because I don't know, they felt like J.R. Sweezy could handle that, and they felt like he was going to get cut anyway because they'd rather have guys that have more upside and were younger at the position. So that's something to look out for. So the first game Seahawks played in the preseason, they played the Chargers, and their first team defense and first team offense were pretty bad, nothing too great, which you kind of expect on the road, and the first preseason game of the season. This last game they were much better, but they were at home. So now they have had both sides, and hopefully they can be somewhere in the middle. Like, I'm not expecting them to be amazing because it's still the preseason, still working things out, still injuries, and Russell Wilson is definitely limiting himself to make sure he's not getting injured. He can during the regular season he's much more of a spark plug guy that can extend a play a little longer. In the preseason he's going to throw the ball away if he gets close to being touched, which is good. So that'll be something to look out for, because if they show that they can, show some good life on both offensive defense, the first team, I think we're pretty safe there, because the Packers are a good team and it's a tough road situation. If they don't, then there could be some little concern. Like, I think the Seahawks will be fine overall, but it creates more concern for the Carolina game, because against the Raiders, I think they'll be fine. There's not as much we can learn from that game, which is their next preseason game. But if they don't show much on the road here, then they could make for a little scarier Carolina game, which I think is going to be a really tough game, because on the road they played them tough last year, and I don't know, it's just going to be a tough situation. First game of the year, the Seahawks won't have a chance to have full momentum and all that. So now let's see, moving on to Russell Wilson. So with Russell Wilson, I want to see how he leads his team in a hostile environment. Obviously, Lambeau Field's one of the toughest places to play. Shouldn't be too cold, at this point in the year, but that's something to look out for. They played well in Chicago, which was good to see. But I want to see more consistency from Russell Wilson. Just leading the team, being one of the best players on the field, and really commanding the team from a get-go, which goes with having the first team offense have success. But I just want to see some instant plays out of him, and I think we'll just learn a lot from watching this game, and it should be a good thing to recap on. But as you can see from this picture, Russell Wilson throwing the ball should be really fun to watch him. He always surprises and makes everything really interesting. So now moving on to Christian Michael versus Robert Turbin. So both these guys have played, but in separate games. Christian Michael ran for about 89 yards in the first game, and then the second game, Christian Michael had like back spasms, so they sat him out. And Robert Turbin had a solid game, had some solid runs, but showed some problems with getting knocked down and not being able to stay up. There were some bigger holes that he could have gone through, could have taken advantage of, but he didn't as much. But he's also just getting back into practicing after being out with, I think, like an arm injury. But he played against a tougher defense too than Christian Michael, who came in a little later in the game and played against the Chargers, who aren't nearly as good as the Broncos. So that's something to look out for. So hopefully they both play in this game. We can see, who steps up. Both these guys are going to make the team, but we'll see, who becomes that really go-to number 2 back. Should be probably Turbin for now, but if Christine Michael can be a really, really, or be the electrifying player that we know he can, that he could be getting more snaps than Turbin. I think Turbin's probably a more safe backup for Lynch if something were to happen to him, but Michael is probably the better player at this point because Turbin doesn't seem to have as much upside. And the weird thing about Turbin is he's just got huge arms, so big and so physical, but he might be like the fastest guy on the team, which is just weird to think about. So he needs to start kind of utilizing that and start growing a little more. And I'd like to see Christian Michael just play again and see how he comes back once the Packers will be able to look at his film from game 1 and see what he's done there and see if he can break out some nice plays. And he's a lot of fun to watch, so that should be good. And then the other 2 running backs / fullbacks, Derek Coleman and Spencer Ware. Spencer Ware looked really good last week. He had a lot of he played some fullback, played some running back, was physical, made some moves on him. He just looks like he's a solid player. Coleman looks decent. I don't know if I'd put a roster spot on him. I think he might be able to sneak into the practice squad though, because he and Ware are pretty similar, and he's a guy that if one of our running backs were to get injured, he could come in. And it's gonna be interesting to see if Michael Robinson and Spencer Ware both make the team, because both seem to be valuable. So the Seahawks could be going 5 running backs, 5 wide receivers, which could be interesting and can make sense, especially if they have guys that like Ware can do a hybrid fullback running back sort of job. If he can grow, then he could take out Michael Robinson's spot, which Michael Robinson won't be here forever, and that could be something super special where the fullback position is more than just blocker and can do a lot with it. And I think you'll see all teams, or a lot of teams, start really maximizing the roster spots and making all of these players provide more than just one job. Maybe you'll see, I think punters and kickers are probably safe because their crafts are different, but maybe like the long snapper needs to be a much better special teams player. Maybe I think you'll start seeing the third quarterback dropped because more teams are going to that, and you want all these guys that are so talented. And the NFL is just getting a lot more talented as it goes on. One other thing I'd like to see is that they expand the draft by maybe a round or 2, because I think there's still a lot of good players out there that you see in undrafted free agency that could be scooped up. Like the Seahawks look like they're going to have 3 guys that are going to make the team out of undrafted free agency, which is kind of crazy that there's so much talent out there. So that's something to look at and is kind of interesting. But yeah, okay, so moving on to the Seahawks defensive line. They really struggled when they were against the number 1 guys these past 2 weeks. Haven't really been able to do much. Then once the backups came in, they've shown some success. So I'm looking for the guys to be able to make that next step and really attack the quarterback, get some pressure, get some sacks. I think if they can get something right away, then that'll set the tone. I'm all about setting the tone right away, and it's within the first couple plays on both sides, you can see kind of which way it's going to go for at least a bit, and then maybe at halftime it can switch up again. But if they can get something going right away, I think that could be successful. So a guy like Benson Mayo, who has had success against backups, I'd like to see him show something against the first teamers, because Cliff Avril, Bruce Irvin, and Chris Clemens are all out for now. Avril should be back by the time the season starts. Irvin's going to be gone for the first 4 weeks. And Clemens is kind of just a wild card. We're not quite sure what he's doing. So if maybe it's O'Brien, Schofield as well, probably more likely. I think we'll probably see Schofield and Avril be the 2 guys to start the season, and then Mayowa as a backup. I'd like to see them show something. And maybe Michael Bennett. He's looked pretty good, but maybe him provide some pressure up the middle as well would be kind of nice to see. Then Tavares Jackson, the backup quarterback job. It's been between Tavares Jackson and Brady Quinn. For a while before the preseason game started, it looked like Brady Quinn was at Tavares Jackson's level, and maybe Tavares Jackson was just going to escape with being more liked in the locker room and maybe a little more versatile. and he knows the system and all that. But now it looks like he's just a much better quarterback. When I went to training camp a couple weeks ago, Brady Quinn had a better day than Jackson, I thought. But in the game, Tavares Jackson just looks much better than Brady Quinn, and he's more consistent, seems to know what he's doing, just seems more calm. That's what you want out of a backup quarterback, not someone that can, he can make a lot of the plays, but isn't going to, do what Russell Wilson does and keep plays alive and really, add some things by himself. Tavares Jackson will just kind of keep everything steady and rely on the talent there, which is, great for a backup quarterback, should be really solid. So the job looks like it's his. He just needs to be decent and not awful, so just kind of maintain. And Brady Quinn is, if he really shows something, maybe the Seahawks can trade him, but he doesn't look like he'll turn into anything with the Seahawks. All right, so then J.R. Sweezy, he's the official, I think, starting guard or something like that. I'm not sure what. The whole offensive line kind of shifts around the way they do it. But he's taken over from Moffit, who, he started last season. J.R. Sweezy did, but then was kind of replaced and kind of was in and out. But now he's the man. Seems to have won that job. So I'm looking for him to come out strong. Shore up some of his issues. With I think he has issues like pass blocking. So I don't know. That's kind of a testament, I think, too. If he's a really good run blocker, the Seahawks are, more run focused. So I think in the preseason where maybe we're seeing a little more passing, because that's where, we want to see. It's easier to judge guys there, with wide receivers and stuff and the things they're going to have to make decisions on. But, the running game is going to be a big part of it. And hopefully they can get that going a little better. It seems like, I don't know, it seems like the running game has been decent, but they don't seem to get as much like last week against the Broncos when Peyton Manning would hand it off. I think it was Hillman would get like 4 yards, just kind of slip through before he was touched at all, because the Seahawks were counting on the pass. That's what they were trying to defending, and it seems like the teams are really trying to stop the run, and they're stopping it. The Seahawks keep trying to pound it, and so maybe they need to focus on the pass a little more, and then that'll open up the run game again. But they really want to try to get their run game to set up their pass game. So hopefully they can do that a little more. But I don't think we need to be too concerned about the Seahawks offense for now. They'll just keep adjusting and shifting around and keep putting up points. They scored 40 points the last game, 33 points before, and defense has only allowed 10. So they've been awesome thus far. So yeah, J.R. Sweezy, I got to look out for him stepping up, because while there's guys that could step up underneath him, he's the guy with how badly the Seahawks want to get rid of John Moffit for whatever reason. So Chris Harper, he was the 4th round guy out of Kansas State, started at Oregon, I think as a quarterback, and then switched around and got drafted, 4th round by the Seahawks. Came in, people thought he could have been like maybe a 2nd rounder. He was that good. He didn't have a good quarterback with Colton Klein in Kansas State, and so people thought, oh wow, he'll if he has a good quarterback, he'll be set. But he hasn't done much at all. Just been really overmatched in the NFL, it seems. And he has tough competition in wide receivers, and he's playing tough corners. And he's, I think, caught like 2 passes so far in the preseason, but I don't know. He looks like he's gonna get cut, or maybe they can sneak him on the practice squad. But I'm sure some team will try to scoop him up because other teams have liked him too. But yeah, hopefully maybe he can show something at least. Try to make Seahawks think about keeping him. But he's just been awful. And I was all in on Chris Harper too. I was like, oh, no way he gets cut. That's crazy talk. He'll definitely step up in the games, But he's done nothing. And with all the talent the Seahawks have, it's going to be hard to keep him. And, maybe if this was a down year for the Seahawks, it'd be easier, more of a developmental guy. He's a guy like that you don't really want to let go, because he has talent and, could turn into a solid player down the road. But, if the Seahawks, they want to win forever, as they say, but they also want to, win now. They have a lot of talent now, and you gotta take that over. So we'll see how he looks. He still could make the team as a 6th wide receiver, but it's not looking likely. And then on the Packers side, I'm excited to see Eddie Lacy out of Alabama, who is supposed to have looked really good. That should be exciting, because it'll give the Seahawks a good test for their run defense, and should be fun to watch. And then Vince Young back after being out for a while. that should be cool to watch because I don't know, he, obviously Pete Carroll at Texas, and then I don't know, the backup quarterback job is more important than the preseason. In this game, maybe I think the starters will play all the way through the first half and into the second, so it won't be as big of a deal. But he's a guy I'm excited to see if he has anything left and if he's able to do anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this Hawks Rambling preview video. I'll do one again after this game, talking about what I thought about it and all that sort of stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next time.